place to be. Welcome, welcome, welcome. The Sports Court. I'm Gregory Beatty, alongside my co-host Eddie Cox, who's back in the house. Missed you last week, man.
Hey, man, I missed you guys too, but I'm glad to be back. All this crazy-ass corona stuff going on has got me going stir crazy. Even though I've been working, your headphones ain't on. Even though I've been working, still not being able to go out and do things, not being able to go certain places, not being able to hit up my favorite spots, and most importantly, what's been driving me the most insane is no sports.
Hey, no sports, that's been brutal. And you know what? Just like everything else in life, you know, you have to adjust. So I've adjusted, but at the same time, I mean, it is brutal. I'm talking about, again, like I mentioned last week, I'm not a big TV watcher, so it's like, and you have to stay in for the most part, but, you know, you still get things done. You still move around when you have to. But it has been brutal with no sports, and the sad thing about it is with this pandemic, I mean, these are some tumultuous times right now, Eddie. The sad thing about it is we can only speculate. We have no idea on when this all is going to end or when some things are going to get back to some normalcy. I mean, things have even been pushed back for an entire month by President Trump. You know, just the world has just been shut down. You know, last week, again, like I said, I missed you last week, got in here, and I like using your phone better than the phone I use. You know, the traffic was going that way last week.
Oh, yeah? Because of the way you had it set up?
The traffic was going that way last week.
Yeah, that's not the direction of
I'm not the most technology-driven guy, so, hey, I just let it roll. And started out last week. Something weird happened, man. This has never happened. Never, ever. I didn't push a button or anything. I was sitting here right before the show, and I was sitting here right before the show, and I was looking at my phone, and I was on my page, right? And, you know, that's pretty much really the only time I really get on Facebook is to go to my notifications. I might scroll for a few seconds here and there.
Right.
Then if I see, but I was sitting there looking at my page, and I was looking, I guess our last video, just viewing, kind of scrolling my page, and the video just disappeared. It just disappeared without me pushing a button or anything. I'm talking about like 2 minutes before we were getting ready to go on, before I was getting ready to go live. You know, it's my first time going live on this phone, so it just disappeared. So I'm saying to myself, what the hell is that? I mean, none of my videos, you know, that's pretty much all I post is the videos.
Yes.
None of them were visible on my page at all. I didn't know what happened. They all just disappeared. Then I went to a couple of people that usually share our video, and it wasn't even on their page. I'm like, what in the hell just happened? I said, man, that shows you the devil is real. But you know what?
Glitch in the Matrix there, man.
But you know what? I rebuked that MF. It still went on.
Hey, man, it's all good. Look, we're back. We got the iPhone in place, so we're set. The video looks great. I'm following along here. Any of you guys want to interact, get in on any of the stuff going on in the NFL lately? That's the only business that still plans to operate, you know, business as usual.
Right
They're planning to start sometime in the fall. I don't know if they're going to start on time, but I tell you what, the draft is for sure
They want to
going
start
down.
on time. That's one thing
You
about the
know
NFL.
They do. They don't want to move
start
that.
on time.
They don't want to move
On
those
time.
TV dates around too much.
Right.
Like, the NFL schedule comes
That
with
moolah.
it comes with a little bit of flexibility just in the way that it's built. But the fact that they're going to a new playoff scheme
Even that-
already, 7
even
teams
that-
and an extra game,
Right.
that's going
Even the way it's built, but also, before I get your point on that, the way it's built, but the fact that the NFL starts training camp in July. I think we're going to miss most of the OTAs and a lot of these. You know, of course, the draft is altered and teams can't go see players in person right now. I think the way the NFL is looking at it also is the fact that they can probably start training camp on June. Hopefully things will be back to some type of normalcy by then. Of course, you know, they're collaborating with – I think these owners are collaborating with the other sports, but the timing of when their season start helps them as well.
Absolutely.
But they changed the schedule, you were saying.
Yeah, well, definitely the owners have approved the fact with the new CBA. Now, I know Eric Reed filed a lawsuit that's challenging the CBA, so maybe that's up in limbo right now. I don't know.
I don't think Eric Reed.
We'll find
Reed's,
out.
Comments are going to carry anyway.
We'll see. I mean, I don't know. They
Or his
filed a
lawsuit.
lawsuit, so right now there could be something there. They say the language is different. Mike Florio, I believe on ProFootballTalk.com, you know, he does have a law degree, says that definitely there are some
Okay.
things that are different, but what does that mean? Is it the same thing, just worded a different way? If not, if it means that maybe they tried to slip something in on
Hoodwink
the old
somebody.
bait and switch,
Right.
the NFL could be in trouble here. But as
But
of
you know
right
what?
now, they
That's
approved an
that's a good
extended
point.
schedule and an extended
And
playoff
Eric Reed just brought it to the
bracket.
forefront. And Eric Reed, it's probably career suicide for him, given all he's been through. But you're right, though. If it's actually some language in the contracts that's different from the ones they signed, I mean, obviously, that bodes well for the players. So, and I think it has something to do with, the players, the previous players, and the pension that they would get, or
Right, I
or
think you're
things-
right. I think that's where
Right.
the language
So
is
it's gonna be-
mentioned.
So it's going to be interesting to see where that leads.
And
the
it's
schedule.
interesting to see, the interesting to see what they do about starting on time. Now, your boy Kirk Herbstreit says that he doesn't think football is going to be played
heard him say
at
that.
all
College
the
or
rest
pro.
of this year, college or pro, because of the proximity of the players in the locker room. I mean, I'm
Right.
paraphrasing here, but how could you
He made
have
some great
players
points.
in a locker room like that without a vaccine or something like that for the coronavirus? We'll see what happens, but
Right.
I'm going to go ahead and assume that it's going to start. It's going to take
I
place
am as well.
unless
I am as well.
the president himself steps in and says that they can't do it.
Well, see, and that's the thing right there. I think President Trump, now he's been forced his hand in a lot of ways to kind of do certain things, but if it was up to Trump, everything would be operating right now, like normally. I mean, he pushed it back a month. I think some people really started getting in his ear. And I don't want to say that he's insensitive to everything that's going on. He's a human being. And, of course, he has loved ones who I'm sure he wants to stay healthy, as well as staying healthy himself. So I'm sure he cares about the health of the overall public in this nation. But I totally agree I totally think that Donald Trump definitely wants to get, as far as the sports world, and some normalcy back. I think he wants to get that as soon as possible. In the NFL, I think with it starting in July, as far as training camp,
Right.
I think they can see where some things will probably be subsided by then. And, of course, they'll have to make some alterations and some things. I don't know if they're going to allow the fans to be a part of, the whole
Of the
situation.
game, yeah.
Of the game. But they
That would be
definitely want some
interesting.
sports. They definitely want some sports ASAP. And, again, I would be shocked. I really think all these owners from all the three major sports, baseball, of course, we don't have any baseball right now. I really think all these owners, I really hope at least that they're collaborating in this effort. And I really think they're trying to fill each other out and see what, owners in one sport are thinking, how can they get this done? How can they get that done? Because, at the end of the day, it's all about the bottom line. And they all want to see that money still rolling in. But at the
Right.
same time, they can't seem insensitive to what's going on, the seriousness of this pandemic.
No, certainly not. And so we'll see what happens. But as of right now, I'm going to operate as if it's going to start
Me too.
on time. And the first thing up is the draft. Now, before we get into the draft, I got to go local. We got to talk a little bit about
I wanna
some
hear
of
your
the
take
things
on
that
the
have
Texans,
happened.
Man. You're a Texans fan.
it-
I didn't get your take last week.
Amidst all this crazy stuff that's going on, as if this isn't already the worst year ever. I think people are talking about 2020 could go down as the worst year ever, like ever of all years in the
Right,
history of
right,
years,
right.
however many years that is. What?
Hey, you know what, though?
2020?
But right. But you know
But
what, though? Before
seriously,
you
though,
go on
man.
right there, the one thing about these shortened seasons, them canceling baseball, canceling basketball, we could talk about, if we think they're going to resume, how they should do it and all that. It's, in my eyes, it's always going to be an asterisk by all this stuff, man. Because I'm a traditionalist. I mean, play 162 games, not 100. Play the full basketball season, but if that's what they have to do right now, I get it, but it's going to be an asterisk. Go ahead.
I mean, we'll see. I mean, baseball was played during a time where there were, world wars going on and stuff like that. And I don't remember specifically exactly how they handled it, but there were seasons that went on and took place.
I got you.
And players
I
that played
still watch.
and players that left, and come
Right.
back and played after their service.
Right.
But as I was talking about the Texans, as if things weren't already bad enough, we get the news that DeAndre Hopkins, now this is a Hall of Fame player. DeAndre Hopkins, I mean, mark my words right now, I don't know if I'm going out on a limb here because I really think I'm not. You think about what he does, not just the numbers that he puts up, But you think about all the catches that he makes, the sideline catches, them tiptoe catches. He's like a modern day Lynn Swan. He's got like an art to what he does, and there isn't any other guy in the league that's like him. Now, you can argue that there are guys who are faster, more explosive, and that can really do some things for your offense that maybe D-Hop can't. But there is one thing that D-Hop is. He's a specialist at what he does, and he's very good in close spaces. And he makes some of the best catches, the most contested catches out of anybody I've ever seen ever in the history of the game. He will be a Hall of Famer one day, and that's why that trade that the Houston Texans made burns so bad. It's not only did you get rid of one of the greatest players in franchise history, maybe even better than Andre Johnson, certainly on his way to being better when you look at the touchdown production he's been able to produce for this offense since becoming a part of it when he was drafted. It stings not only because did they move on from DeAndre Hopkins, but they didn't get anything back in return. Now, this doesn't take anything away from David Johnson. Look, David Johnson was going to be cut. If you look at what they're trying to do over there, Cliff Kingsbury, he does not fit. Okay, 325 rushing yards last year, whatever it was, he does not fit. They were going to cut him anyway, cut bait, save what they can against the cap, and move on from him because Kenyon Drake is the bee's knees in their offense now.
I agree.
However, if they could find somebody dumb enough to bite, and boy, did they catch a whale on this one.
Just call Bill O'Brien.
You get David Johnson off the books, and you get DeAndre Hopkins back in return. You only have to give up a second-round pick, the number 40 overall pick. You know what burned me, and I don't have the guy's name right here in front of me, but you know what burned the most when I heard this? That Arizona, and this came from one of their beat writers, that the Cardinals would have given the Texans the number 8 overall pick that they own, but they didn't ask.
Are you serious?
I'm just saying this is hearsay, but they didn't ask.
You're talking about a guy sabotaging his team and himself. Just look at Bill O'Brien. I mean, how idiotic was that? You made some great points right there. I mean, one thing about DeAndre Hopkins, if you take away Deshaun Watson and his importance to that team, because, of course, someone has to get the ball to DeAndre Hopkins.
And we could talk about what Deshaun Watson is going to do now because that's up in the air.
Absolutely, because I would not trust Bill O'Brien. But to get rid of DeAndre Hopkins, the guy is an outlet for Deshaun Watson. I mean, you have your franchise quarterback. You have to supply him with some threats. DeAndre Hopkins was your do-it-all wide receiver, a guy that can be a possession guy. And even though he wasn't a deep threat where he's just going to take the top off of defense, even though he's not that guy, he can still get behind defenders.
Oh, absolutely.
And he catches everything in sight.
Absolutely.
So you just throw it up to him. If the ball is in his vicinity, he's more than likely going to come down with it. And you get rid of a guy like that, I mean, that's everything for your team. And, again, like you stated, for David Johnson, who was a good – but would somebody please tell me –
in 2014, like
that's my point.
That's a long time ago, man.
I don't get all this David Johnson hype. I like the year he had, the 1 year where he had that big year catching and receiving the football. Not saying he isn't a good back, but people were acting like after that year, because I had to start thinking to myself, okay, I know this guy had a great year, but people were talking like it's somebody that I probably should have known previously. And I was saying to myself, who the hell is David Johnson? But he did have that big year and hasn't done anything since then.
Well, look, I tell you what, Bill O'Brien, and not even to justify this move, like to get the most out of David Johnson, because, look, I like David Johnson as a guy that I thought the Texans could have gone out and gotten had he gotten cut from the Arizona Cardinals. Like, go on, sign this veteran. You don't have to pay him a lot of money. You bring him in. He's on a prove-it deal. Mm-hmm. You know, similar to what they did with Carlos Hyde. It would have been the perfect scenario for a guy like David Johnson to come into this offense through that avenue. But instead, he comes on a trade of DeAndre Hopkins. But I hope Bill O'Brien is on the phone or Skyping or whatever, somewhere talking to Bruce Arians. Because if you want to get the most out of David Johnson, that's the guy you need to be talking to because he knows how to do it. I think David Johnson still has some tread left on the tire if he can stay healthy. But there's no way, no matter what David Johnson does, there's no way they're going to be able to justify trading DeAndre Hopkins for David Johnson in nearly a straight-up trade, because you get in a second round pick, yeah, okay, that's nice, but That's not something that you can hang your hat on, or that people in this city who follow this team, who stand by this team year in and year out, stand by. You know what I'm so tired of? I'm sorry to go on a tangent here. I'm so tired of Bill O'Brien thinking he's the smartest guy in the room. Like he can make these types of decisions and not even have to explain himself. We haven't heard anything from him on this trade. We've heard a little bit from DeAndre Hopkins taking the high road. We've heard what Michael Irvin had to say.
From him. He went and got Randall Cobb. That's supposed to be the replacement.
Look,
go ahead.
And I have no problem with the players they're adding. I think that if you're going to have an offense where you're going to try to spread the ball around and do a lot of different things, have a lot of different threats instead of an offense that focuses on one guy, okay, I get that. But still, that does not let you off the hook for not getting value, equal value in return. There's nothing that ever will. It was the worst trade in the history of football, worse than Herschel Walker, worse than Ricky Williams, worse. It was the worst trade ever. I wish David Johnson the best, but it was the worst freaking trade I've ever seen.
It was stupid. And
people are losing their minds.
I mean, because, like I said last week, first of all, the guy gets rewarded with an extension and a solidifying of a title, and GM, which we all know he was calling all the shots before that anyway with the Texans. But after blowing a 24-point lead at Kansas City, I mean, this is a
when
guy,
you thought
man,
it couldn't get any worse.
Right. I mean, a guy who's coached in bad divisions. He's led his team to win the seasons. But like I said last week as well, he's always had a few superstars that he can rely on that's going to make sure that team is always competitive. I mean, and you got rid of one of those guys, again, who I think is the best player on your team right now, if you take away Deshaun Watson. So, and of course, you had J.J. Watt.
Oh, there's no doubt. Hop's the most decorated and best player on that team. He carries the most swag and the most respect throughout the league at his position. Yeah, Deshaun Watson has a lot of swag and carries a lot of clout, but he hasn't quite reached what everybody thinks he's going to become. We just know he's on his way there. We're waiting for him to get there.
Be in Houston
yeah,
now.
We're not sure.
I mean, you take away
we're
his
really
biggest
not sure.
weapon
But DeAndre Hopkins was already a future Hall of Famer.
Hey, man, he's an all-pro, man. I mean, it's really no way other than to cut and slice and dice that move other than it was stupid. And you're talking about from a guy who has some I'm not saying he's a bad coach, but we know some of his in-game decisions that he's made, some of his indecisiveness. I mean, this is a guy that'll call a timeout and then throw the challenge flag. If you knew you're going to throw, and then so he'll end up losing the challenge.
Two timeouts. Yeah, I've seen him do that.
Stuff like that, man. It's like, come on, guy. I mean, the guy has really made some bad decisions. And again, I don't know what kind of clout he has over there. Obviously a lot. I don't know what he has on the McNairs. God rest Bob McNair's soul. I'm not specifically talking about him. And I'm just speculating right now and just throwing this out there. But how does this guy continue to get rewarded and continue to have the trust and the backing of these McNairs? I don't get it. I mean, granted, again, he's won a couple of division rounds, but I don't know how he's selling them over with some of these decisions. Then if you look at it on Arizona's side, Kyler Murray right now is – I'm talking about he's like, thank you. I mean, he already had a productive rookie year as it is. I think Cliff Kingsbury came in there and did an admirable job. I mean, they actually tied a game that they probably should have won, lost a couple of games that they could have pulled out. So they're probably going to get an offensive tackle with that first pick, to protect Kyler Murray. But you already have Larry Fitzgerald there, who's a Hall of Famer in his own right. And even though he's slowing down, he still can be the same player if you give him one-on-one coverage because he's so savvy. He knows how to get out of his breaks and cuts, and he catches everything in sight. So he knows how to set the defender up and get where he needs to be. But then you add DeAndre Hopkins. Who's going to take most of the coverage away from Larry Fitzgerald, and I'm sure they're going to get, knowing Kingsbury, I'm sure he's going to. This is a very deep receiver class.
Oh, he's already got an arsenal over there of receivers. You got Larry Fitzgerald.
DeAndre Hopkins.
They've already got the young Christian Kirk out of Texas A&M, a guy who really was starting to come into his own
and
last
he can
year.
Return punts.
A guy who can do a lot of things. They still have Andy Isabella. A guy, if you play daily fantasy, he hit I think one time last year on a big game. A guy who doesn't get a lot of snaps in the offense. They split his snaps with I think his name's Bird, the other receiver, Bird.
Bird, I can't think of his first name
either. I think it's Jarris. But he split snaps with him, so he doesn't get a lot of time. But they're expecting him to step up and take that, sophomore receiver jump and be a lot more productive in this offense. And what better way to do it than to add the ultimate coverage, magnet, which
Absolutely.
is DeAndre Hopkins. Defenses automatically have to set up and make sure they have a backup plan, a contingency plan if DeAndre Hopkins gets loose in their secondary. You can't ever leave him just one-on-one. There are very few corners. Jalen Ramsey may be one of them who you can leave one-on-one with DeAndre Hopkins too many times before you're caught with your pants down.
Right.
It's just he's that type of receiver, and that's really going to open up this offense, which last year, look, that's an installation year. When you're coming in with a brand new offensive system that the NFL really hasn't even seen before, you need at least an entire NFL season just to get the offense installed. I don't even think he's got the whole thing installed yet. I think they've just got a major portion of it.
He was trying to adjust to the NFL, and he didn't want to be too playground, pass happy, Texas Tech. I mean, he wanted to show that he can adjust to the NFL, and so I think you're right, man. I think he's even because it's obvious how innovative he is. So I think with an added DeAndre Hopkins, I mean, I think that's just going to bode so well for the Arizona Cardinals. And, I mean, like you said, it just fell right into their lap because of the stupidity of one Bill O'Brien. Now, even if Bill O'Brien, now don't y'all have 2 second-round picks?
Yeah, they have two. They have their own and they have Arizona's.
Now, even if you try to trade up into the first round and you use
that, it still doesn't make any sense to do that.
It still doesn't make up for DeAndre Hopkins
because it doesn't make any sense to even move into the first round.
Whatever receiver you get, whether it's no matter who it is, CeeDee Lamb, Henry Ruggs, or who else am I thinking of? The CeeDee Lamb, Jared Jeudy.
Course.
And, of course, there's some more receivers, too. It's a deep receiver class this year. But they're not going to come in and have the experience and the production of a DeAndre Hopkins.
No, not at all. They're still going to have to adjust to the game here at the NFL level. So, and not to mention, you trade up into that position. Like I said, it'd be totally different. I would still be very upset. It wouldn't make that much sense to me to trade DeAndre Hopkins. But if you had the number 8 overall pick and a shot at somebody really special, then okay,
it would justify it a bit more.
It eases it a little bit. It's understandable.
Right.
But without that, you've taken those 2 second-round picks and moving up into the first round for a wide receiver. That's just stupidity.
Because his personal feelings got in the way. Allegedly, he had a meeting with DeAndre Hopkins and made a reference about
Aaron Hernandez.
And he didn't like his baby's mama's around and all
real
this and
peculiar.
That's not a good look for Bill
report.
O'Brien.
Not a good look at all. It makes me wonder if he still has control of the locker room over there. And one thing that has eased my mind about that a little bit is an interview that Pat McAfee did with Andre Johnson, where they asked Andre about his relationship with Bill O'Brien and about the DeAndre Hopkins trade. And just to sum it all up, in a nutshell, real quick. He says that the trade's part of the business. DeAndre Hopkins is actually thrilled to be where he's at. He's really happy. He got a new deal, which is what he wanted.
Well, see,
and he doesn't have any ill will towards Bill O'Brien at all.
I get that.
Just like
I get that.
DeAndre Hopkins,
Let
when
me
they
pose
asked
this
him, said
question
it was blown out of proportion.
Well, of course, because I don't think
took
DeAndre
the high
Hopkins.
road.
He took the high road. Now, will he have taken the high road if he was traded to the worst team in the league that didn't have an up-and-coming star quarterback? That's the question. Now, he's probably just a stand-up guy, and no matter what, he probably would have took the high road. He probably would have taken the high road. But it makes it a lot easier to take the high road when you go into an offense that features last year's #1 pick and Rookie of the Year in Kyler Murray and a very innovative, pass-happy coach and in a beautiful city in Phoenix. I mean, you have a Hall of Fame receiver on the other side. I think going to the up-and-coming Arizona Cardinals really helped that high road become more of a thing. But you know what? I mean, I don't think he expected – he should have known. Now, maybe that's a learning experience for him too. He has to realize when he talks to one of these reporters like that, like Michael Irvin, I don't know if he thought that Michael Irvin was just being cool with him and he wasn't going to go to the media with it, that's Michael Irvin's job. Now, I would like to think that Michael Irvin chopped it up with him man to man and said, "Hey, you don't mind if I put this on record, right?"
You know when you're talking to Irv, man, that's already that comes with the territory there.
That's
if you're not, then you gotta say off the record. You know, you gotta establish that.
You have to establish that.
Yeah, no, there's no ill will there from DeAndre Hopkins either. He knows Irv's just doing his job. It's a juicy story, but DeAndre Hopkins said it was a little bit blown out of proportion. But hey, he's happy.
Hold on. How can it be blown out of proportion? What was blown
out of proportion? I don't know. I'm not the one who said it.
No, listen. What was blown out of proportion? Michael Irvin's words were specific to what DeAndre Hopkins allegedly told him about what transpired in the meeting. Right. So that's all Michael Irvin reported. Michael Irvin didn't go into detail about the background of the background of their relationship. You know, so maybe he just feels it was blown out of proportion because he didn't want to look like the bad guy and a guy that was leaving on bitter terms. So I don't know.
Well, I guess where I was trying to go with it is with that interview with Andre Johnson. Andre Johnson and DeAndre Hopkins are very close. Like, Andre Johnson calls him a, quote, little brother. So, you know, these two, they talk. He said in the interview they've talked 20 times since this has happened. And you know that if he felt like Bill O'Brien did DeAndre Hopkins wrong, now Bill O'Brien did all of us wrong when he traded him, don't get me wrong, but if he really felt like Bill O'Brien did something wrong with DeAndre Hopkins and there was malice behind what he did, I don't think he would be able to go on record saying that he has a good relationship with Bill O'Brien without damaging his relationship with DeAndre Hopkins. But that's what he did. He went on record and said him and Bill O'Brien have a good relationship, even though, you know, Bill O'Brien.
DeAndre Hopkins and Bill O'Brien?
No, that Andre Johnson himself and Bill O'Brien have a good
Andre
relationship.
Johnson is not in the room anymore. So he can deal with Andre Johnson from afar.
Well, no, I mean, Andre Johnson works for the Texans.
He does work for the Texans.
Yeah, he's a special advisor to the head coach.
But see, what they said was that DeAndre Hopkins had such a presence in that locker room, and a lot of guys were starting to follow DeAndre Hopkins, and I don't see why that's such a bad thing to follow a guy that's an all-pro that brings his lunch pail every week. Now, I don't know what was transpiring behind the scenes. Bill O'Brien, he has the right to say, hey, I don't want certain people around in work environments. I get that part of it. But if he traded DeAndre Hopkins because of his hidden personal dislike for DeAndre Hopkins, because he could have up to that point, he could have had DeAndre Hopkins thinking that up until that meeting that they were cool and he was really fond of him. Of course, he likes his production on the field. Probably not crazy about the braids. That might have something to do with it. You never know. Just speculating. I don't know. Just saying. But probably not crazy about the dreadlocks. I mean, maybe he found out that Bill O'Brien, at the end of the day, really didn't give a damn about him, especially if he feels that he's going to be more of a voice in the locker room. If Bill O'Brien sees that he's turning out to be more of a voice in that locker room and on these young players, of course, like I've said before a long time ago, Bill O'Brien is a guy that's very controlling and an egomaniac.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, without a doubt, he's got to be the guy that is has the final say over everything. Right. And that's the position he's in now with the Houston Texans. It still boggles my mind that he would just wake up one day and decide to trade DeAndre Hopkins. I know Hop wanted a new contract. And this isn't justify the trade in any means. Like, this is where I can understand why you would trade him. He wants a new contract. He's going to get that in Arizona. He's going to be probably the highest paid wide receiver in the league, probably the highest paid wide receiver in NFL history. Mm-hmm. Bill O'Brien knew that he wasn't going to do that. Now, he just didn't get back anything. Right. He traded a dime for a penny. You know, he didn't get anything back.
And he's still taking a hit against the salary cap as well.
And that's what I don't understand now. I understand not wanting to re-sign DeAndre Hopkins because, you know, he's not the best salary cap negotiator, and I don't know. I know they got rid of Chris Olsen, who's a guy who's been doing a great job for like the past decade for the Houston Texans. They're never in salary cap hell, never have been, never will be. As under him, they weren't going to be. Now we're not sure if they are or not. So Bill O'Brien was not ready to give DeAndre Hopkins a new contract, which when he still had 3 years left on his deal. But he deserved it, though. I'm going to say he deserved it. Right. Bill just knew he wasn't going to do it.
And then he still has to pay Laramie Tunsil. But now they may, he has to look at the end game as well. Now that might hinder him from getting a deal with Deshaun. Just the way with Deshaun Watson, because of the way he handled it, and like you keep saying, and which I totally agree with. Okay, if you traded him and got the 8th pick, like you previously stated, then it's more understandable, even though people will still be up in arms because you got rid of essentially the best player on your team and the guy that makes your offense work. It's not like you having – even though Carlos Hyde, my fellow Buckeye, even though he had a good year last year, and Duke Johnson, but it's not like you have a big-time superstar running back in the backfield, but then you get rid of the guy that's pretty much most of your offense along with Deshaun Watson. It will make it more understandable if he got something in return for it. But just the fact that he did not really just makes that just crazy.
Well, it just shows that teams know that they can negotiate with Bill O'Brien and always lowball or highball the negotiation, and they're probably going to get things. They're probably going to get things closer to in their favor than in the Texans.
Right.
I think we all know the Texans paid a premium for Laramie Tunsil. The fact that they paid that premium is the fact why they is the same fact why they can't take these 2 picks and move up. They got to fill too many holes. They need help on the defense big time, and they need help on the offensive line still. So these picks have to be used. You would rather have 2 second-round picks than trade those 2 and only have 1 first-round pick. I'm sorry, but they need every pick they can get right now because Bill's traded so many away. A 3rd-round pick here for Duke Johnson, 3rd-round pick here for this, 3rd-round pick here from that. And here, next thing you know, the Texans need picks.
Right. Well, you know what? I hear all these Texans fans talking about how they're done with the Texans and this and that. I'll tell you one thing that's going to alleviate that.
A lot of them
One thing that's going to alleviate that, if the season goes on as hoped for by us and many, and
if they win,
everybody will be right back on the Texans.
Well, you know what, man? What if Tim Kelly and Deshaun Watson, what if that marriage right there, that couple, those 2 guys, the new offensive coordinator for the Houston Texans, promoted play caller, we believe he'll be calling the plays this year instead of Bill O'Brien, him and Deshaun Watson, what if those 2 guys end up being so good that they save Bill O'Brien's ass and make him look like a genius? I still won't buy it. I won't buy it, but winning, those 2 guys right there, like the prospect of what Tim Kelly can be, because he's got a lot of respect around the league. There's a lot of guys that really believe him, along with Anthony Weaver, the new defensive coordinator, that these guys have potential to start climbing the ranks and possibly have head coach potential. I've heard that about Anthony Weaver. Mm-hmm. So, there's an opportunity here that these 2 guys, and then you add Weaver to the deal, if he can do something with this defense, next thing you know, all of a sudden Bill O'Brien doesn't look like a genius, but it looks like, hey, my plan worked, so you can't say anything about it.
Absolutely.
Like, you got to just take it, and if they're winning, people are going to fill the stadium. But I'll tell you this, for the first time ever, I've never seen anything like this. Me and my friends, we followed the Houston Texans ever since their inauguration. I have several of my close friends who have season ticket packages. They were returning their season ticket packages, trying to sell them, trying to get out from under them in any way they can. After finding out that the trade was official of DeAndre Hopkins, I've never seen anything like that before. But, even me, to a point, like, we cover the sport, so we have to come in here and talk about it. But I was fed up with the Texans at the end. I'm like, man, how can you sit here and watch somebody seemingly drive something into the ground? Now, if I didn't have 14 days of coronavirus quarantine to sit and think about it, I probably would have been in here breaking things. The day it happened, if we had come in here, the day it happened, could you imagine what this place would have looked like? I would have tore the curtains down.
That's why I wanted to hear you last week.
I would have thrown some things around. But the point of it is, now that we can think about it, we can hit it from many different angles now.
Absolutely.
We can let our frustration out about how bad Bill O'Brien got fleeced, and then we can talk about where the Texans go from here.
Well, that's the only thing.
And how they turn it into a positive and somehow find a way to start winning. And it'll be interesting to see what they do with them 2 first-round picks, and if they make any trades.
2 second-round picks?
2 second-round picks, I'm sorry. You're right. Or if they make any trades, there's been some Brandon Cooks murmurs out there that he's on the block,
like
and he
Cooks,
could be
had. He keeps
had.
getting traded from good. I don't get that.
I don't understand it either, and he's on a very team-friendly contract right now. I think it's like $8 or $9 million a year. something that a guy who produces the way he produces.
He does produce.
You know, you could easily
He's a good locker
justify
room
spending
guy,
that
too.
money. You just spent it on Randall Cobb, who didn't have half the production that Brandon Cooks did. And then you bring him into this offense and know he doesn't replace DeAndre Hopkins, but all of a sudden you start looking around and you think, hey, we got a lot faster all of a sudden. When you think about if Will Fuller's healthy, Randall Cobb, he's got some really good speed. That's one thing he's always had ever since he came out of Kentucky is that good speed. And then you add –
I think he's more quick than fast.
Well,
But
hey,
he's not slow.
definitely not
And he has
slow.
bad
And he's
ankle.
really good in the slot. His hips are really
He
good,
is.
and he's good at getting open in that area.
It's a good addition, but you lose addition. It's addition by subtraction.
But if you add Brandon Cooks and then his speed
Right,
to that
absolutely.
offense, and then you look at your reserves, you have Kenny Stills. He's a burner. I mean, you're looking
Yeah.
around, and QT, he may not be a burner, but he's got punt return history and potential in the league, and
Right.
and he really didn't do anything last year. Had one good game. I think that you start looking around and say, hey, okay. Now all of a sudden, I see what they're trying to do. They want to be like the Chiefs. They want to have speed out there. They just want to make sure that whatever guy they're lining up on their side of the ball is faster than the guy you've got on the other side of the ball, and they're going to just live with whoever wins those battles. I mean, that almost makes sense for what I've seen out of Bill O'Brien's offense because I've never really seen creativity at its finest. We've seen some
you've seen
things
flashes here and there.
formationally,
Right.
you know, some of the things
Right.
he's done with Deshaun Watson in the RPO game. You got to give him credit for that. There is some genius in there, but we really haven't seen him scheme people open the way an Andy Reid does. So why don't we just put a bunch of guys out there who we know are going to
Who
go
can
out
play.
there and win matchups,
can play.
and we'll live off Deshaun Watson, who is another guy who wins matchups and
you know he's
who
going to
makes
add
plays.
little bit. Right.
Absolutely.
Well, you know what?
And turn it into a free for all out
Right.
there.
Well, I mean, I think right now you have
it's
the right
reckless, but
attitude.
what the hell
You
are
have
they
the-
doing? I mean,
but you have
everything they're doing is reckless right now.
Right, but as a Texans fan, you have the right attitude right now and your optimism with that because I mean the decision to get rid of DeAndre Hopkins is already in Arizona. So again, like you say, what can you do as the Texans moving forward? If you're able to lasso Brandon Cooks, I mean, I think that would be it won't be DeAndre Hopkins obviously, but because DeAndre Hopkins is just so he just has so much ability to do a number of different things. I mean, again, he can be your possession guy or he can be your speed guy. But Brandon Cooks, he's a nice route runner, and he's just not a deep threat as well. He can run routes. He can get in and out of his breaks, so he can run deep end routes. He can run any route on the route tree, and he's a good receiver. So for the Texans' sake, I hope they're able to land Brandon Cooks.
Well, that would be something, but I mean, I honestly, I'm not keeping my hopes up because
Right,
when
right,
they
right.
do land him, then we got to talk about what they give up for him.
Yeah, well,
you know, here we go. It starts.
Again,
It
it's
starts
the
all
only thing that's
over
gonna kill
again.
everything is winning. Now, of course, I want to get your thoughts on Tom Brady. Phillip Rivers, obviously,
Two
with the
older
Colts.
veterans, you know,
With some
elder
good teams
statesmen
now.
in the game, moving on
With
to new teams, greener
Right.
pastures, maybe for both. I don't know. Brady is pumped about being in Tampa Bay. I heard a report that, you know, he actually wanted to go to Tampa Bay.
He
That's
did.
where he wanted to be. And I mentioned it before. I mean, I told you last time we were in here, you start looking around Tom Brady, and you've got the likes of Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. Who else they got over there? They
O.J.
had
Howard.
O.J. Howard, the
The
young
other
young
tight end, I think, what's his name?
Oh, Cameron Brate.
Cameron Brate. I mean,
He's
and you
a
could
very good.
utilize
He would
those.
start on most teams.
He would, and they're going to utilize him more in the red zone area. I mean, obviously they're going to alternate those guys, but I think O.J. Howard has, and that's something I think O.J. Howard has to realize at this point in Tom Brady's career, he needs to look at how successful Rob Gronkowski was with Tom Brady. Now, obviously, Arians' offense is predicated more, at least in the past, it's always been predicated more on deep downfield
Driving the ball
throws,
down
driving
the
the ball. But I'm sure he's going to acquiesce to where Tom Brady is right now. And for Tom Brady's sake, I'm sure Tom Brady is such a competitor, he feels that he can still make those plays. So he don't want them to alter the offense too much. Because, again, when he's playing in Tampa with that heat, that ball is going to travel. So once it hits that air, and I think Tom Brady, if he's upright, can still make the necessary throws. And again, a deep pass is more about timing more than anything. So he has to know. You have Mike Evans over there who's about 6'5" and can fly. You have to realize you might have to throw it a tad bit quicker. You might have to launch it a tad bit quicker because he's going to use those long legs and run under it. So you don't want to underthrow him or overthrow him. So he's going to have to get his timing down with those guys. But O.J. Howard has to realize, after watching the success of Rob Gronkowski, he's going to have to realize how valuable and important that he can be to Tom Brady at this point. Now, here's a guy that came out of Alabama who has all the talent in the world. Didn't have a huge season last year, but he still made some plays. I think he was injured a bit. But O.J. Howard can be a special tight end. He's almost operating like a wide receiver. So if Arians can draw up some plays to really free him up, and he can free himself up, but then you have Cameron Brate as well. But I think O.J. Howard is the key to Tom Brady's success next year. If he can stay healthy and they can get the ball to O.J. Howard more times than not, that will obviously take some of the pressure off Mike Evans and Godwin. I mean, those guys are already going to get enough attention enough attention as it is. Now, if you have O.J. Howard having a big season, and every time Tom Brady drops back, it seems like he may go to O.J. Howard on any route. I mean, he can run seam routes, he can run corner routes, he can run in, it's almost like having a wide receiver. If you get the defense on their heels and they're thinking that O.J. Howard is that number one guy, imagine what Mike Evans is going to be able to do and what Godwin is going to be able to do. The only thing I think Tampa Bay is lacking right now, and I like their running back, Ronald Jones III.
Ronald Jones.
I like him.
Peyton Barber.
But I think they need him a big-time running back, maybe in that draft.
Yeah, I could see them going running back, especially with Bruce. I know he likes to have a guy that they can feature out of the backfield. Peyton Barber, he's had some success, but he's still very limited in really what he can do. He's more of a specialist. I think you team him up with somebody. Ronald Jones, the third or the second, he's a very talented young back who I think a lot of people think maybe could develop into a stable back. The problem is it's just happening too slowly. I'm not seeing enough from him.
I thought he was going to be very good coming out of USC.
He looked like he really could be, and there's something there, but I don't see him being effective enough in the passing game to really be somebody who they want to feature in a Bruce Arians, Tom Brady-led offense.
Could you imagine them with DeAndre Swift or J.K. Dobbins? And I say DeAndre Swift because I think right now, DeAndre Swift is going to be the first running back taken. I mean, because of his dual threat ability, and he's a breakaway guy. And J.K. Dobbins, I think, is going to be somewhere maybe second round. You know, I still love him in KC, but I wouldn't mind seeing him playing with Tom Brady as well. But I like Jonathan Taylor as well, man. I like Jonathan Taylor. Now, if they can get Jonathan Taylor, I think Jonathan Taylor is underrated. Now, he started coming on as a receiver last year more at Wisconsin, but I think Jonathan Taylor probably should be the number one rated running back in this draft, to tell you the truth. I mean, DeAndre Swift, J.K. Dobbins, all three of those guys, and it's somebody else too. But I think Jonathan Taylor at 6'2", 225, 30 pounds, can run a 4.3, ran a 4.39 at the combine, is a track star. I mean, he started catching the football more out of the backfield last year. And let's get real. You know, they talk about these receivers in the passing game. For the most part, you're going to have a few receivers here and there who can really do damage as a receiver. Christian McCaffrey comes to light. Of course, the guy from New Orleans, number 41,
Alvin Kamara. I know who you're talking about.
I was trying to say Cameron, but Alvin Kamara, hopefully he has a bounce-back year. But
he definitely will.
But most of these guys are just coming out the backfield, catching screens, catching dump passes.
Yeah.
And if you have a chance to get Jonathan Taylor, if you Bruce Arians, in my opinion, you can't pass up Jonathan Taylor.
Maybe. I mean, I could see them going offensive line, too. Their line is good, not great. I can see them getting a lot of help there.
Yeah,
we saw the Texans were able to get in the backfield and get some pressure on Jameis Winston when they played last year. But when I think about a Bruce Arians and Tom Brady-led offense, I think about David Johnson. I think about a guy like that. I think about
you said that.
I think about James White and the way that he was used with Tom Brady. How many receptions he'd have? Think about that Super Bowl where he had 14 catches. I look for them to find a guy like that. I don't know if they're going to go for a running back in the first round.
I think Taylor could still be that guy.
Who's that?
I think Jonathan Taylor. I really think he can still
I'm
be
not
that guy.
saying he can't, but
But
when
you're saying
you look
that's
at a
what they
guy
need. I
like
got you.
Arians and they lay everything out on the table, they want to play the long game. Arians is going to be there for a while. Does he want his first round pick the first round pick that he makes? Does he want it to be a running back, or does he want it to be one of those guys that he took a chance on, like David Johnson, or another back that he gets in the later rounds, and hopefully he finds his Kareem Hunt or his Alvin Kamara, a guy like that who can come in and really do everything in that offense that they're looking for them to do, from the flats to the the H post, all that stuff.
Right
And
on.
I really think that the first round pick that they make will not be a running back.
I agree with that. I think in the mock draft, I think they're I think Kuiper, if I'm not mistaken, have him getting a guy Wirfs. I can't remember where he's from, maybe Iowa, but the offensive lineman. So that's probably the direction they'll go in. But again, if you have somebody sitting there in the second round, one of those running backs like All Day J.K. and one of those guys, I think DeAndre Swift will be gone probably somewhere in the mid-first round. But Jonathan Taylor, J.K. Dobbins, I think you have to get one of those guys. But you also have your guys. So we'll see. I think Tom Brady is very happy to be in Tampa, to start anew. Of course, Bill Belichick.
Daryl says don't sleep on Cam Akers.
Cam Akers was the guy I was looking for. Well, that's because he loves Florida State. That's a Florida State guy right there, Daryl, my cuz. But, Cam Akers is nice. And when he came out of high school, I thought Cam Akers was going to tear it up in the NCAA, because I think he was a top-rated running back coming out of high school. He didn't have the college production that I anticipated from him, but I saw some flashes. I mean, I see where he can be a good running back, a very good running back.
Some backs,
And
some
he
players
was
just
in a
take
bad
longer to
situation
develop.
with Florida, true. And he was at Florida State, a team that was on a downward spiral the past few years.
Yeah,
so
no more
he
Jimbo
didn't enter,
Fisher.
Right, so he didn't enter the best situation at Florida State, even though he still has some talent around him. But I don't think the coaching was up there. So, but I think he can be a good back, and I'm not sleeping on him. I guess I slept on him enough to forget, but that was the guy that I was thinking about, Cam Akers, as that other guy. So those four guys, J.K. Dobbins, Cam Akers, DeAndre Swift, Jonathan Taylor, those guys I look to do some damage in the NFL. And, of course, you're going to have your sleepers.
Sticking with the Bucks here, what do you think their chances are of unseating Sean Payton, those guys down in New Orleans? Drew Brees, he's back another year. They were talking retirement. I don't think anybody really thought he was going anywhere. I know ESPN's trying to lasso him and pull him in and get him to do their Monday Night Football to replace Jason Witten. But aside from that, do you think that Tom Brady all of a sudden gives the Tampa Bay Buccaneers a chance to get into the playoffs, not as a wild card, but as the winner of the NFC South?
Speaking of wild card, it's going to be 3 wild card games next year on Saturday, 3 on Sunday. Of course, they expanded, so it'll be 2 extra teams,
right?
Only 1 bye. But of course, I think
that's going to be interesting too.
Yeah,
man.
I mean, it really is.
And
it's going to add to the intrigue. It's going to add to the
intrigue.
intrigue.
That number 1 overall seed.
Right.
Now, there's not 2
so teams are going to have to play throughout the season now.
Absolutely.
They can't rest at the end. But Tom Brady, I think, makes them an instant contender if he can be the Tom Brady that we all know. And he don't even have to be, the Tom Brady from 10 years ago. If he can stay upright, of course, he's not going to turn the ball over. And if he has some tremendous weapons to work with and a coach that's a damn good coach in Arians, in my opinion.
I mean, and one of my favorite people in the league.
Right, I love Bruce
down.
Arians. I mean, he's a real honest guy. And but you have a defense that's up and coming, a defensive line. You have a nice secondary. So you have speed on both sides of the ball, weapons everywhere. One thing you know about Tom Brady, he's going to take what the defense gives him. So he's not going to be a Jameis Winston. We could talk about where he may end up. He still doesn't have any suitors right now. And, of course, it's kind of hard, with this pandemic right now. And, of course, Cam Newton as well. But Tom Brady is going to take what the defense gives him. And so whatever you're giving him, he's going to take it until you adjust. So if O.J. Howard is the guy that they're running free, he's going to – if he's running, bam, bam, bam. Okay, you take away O.J. Howard,
rid of it
who else is open now? Bam, bam, bam. So Tom Brady is going to be – he's going to matriculate their ball downfield as long as he can stay upright, because if the pass rush gets to him, he's not going anywhere.
That is true. But that's why I just said, he's a master at getting the ball out of his hands quickly.
Right on.
I think
and I'm sure they're going to design some plays for that.
I think having big receivers like Godwin, like Mike Evans. These are two very big, strong guys that can go up and get the football. I think that gives him an advantage with his arm not being quite as strong. Don't get me wrong, he can still rip it.
Right.
The guy can spin it. He
But
can
he's
get the ball.
43,
He can
of
get the
course
ball
he's lost some
downfield.
velocity.
He's
Right.
losing some. I think when you have guys who can go up, it reminds me of back when Phillip Rivers, who never really had the strongest arm, but back when he had Vincent Jackson and who was the other cat he had on the other side, 6'5". They had like two twin
they
tower
did. Vincent
receivers.
Jackson and
I can't remember the other guy's name for the life of me right now.
I don't know why I want to say Keenum, but I'm thinking about Jacksonville from way back then.
Yeah, but Phillip Rivers would be able to put that ball up in the air, and they could go up and get it and make a lot of 50-50 balls turn into big plays for the offense. I could see that happening a lot with this offense as well. Speaking of Phillip Rivers, what do you think's in store for him in Indy now that he takes over that offense?
Well,
do you see them? Is that an improvement? Do you think
I'm not sure that's
over
an
Jacoby
improvement.
Brissett?
I'm not,
because I thought about it.
I don't think it is
I'm not
really
sure.
at this point in Phillip Rivers. That's the thing right there. I have to wait and see. I have to take a wait and see approach.
I think he can be, but if he continues on
if he can turn it back and with the protection of the offensive line, hopefully, because the thing that you're not going to get from Phillip Rivers that you can from Brissett is that elusiveness. I mean, at least Brissett, if something breaks down, he can get out of the pocket and make some things happen. But if Phillip Rivers can be Phillip Rivers, and they're going to need some more weapons, some more wideouts. But in my opinion, last year, Phillip Rivers really – and you remember I said it early in the year. I see the decline in his arm strength. Like you said, never been a big, powerful arm, strong guy, but I even saw even more of a decline last year. Now, granted, we'll see if that has something to do with the offensive line and him being under pressure and just throwing the ball at times when he wasn't ready to throw and not timing it out right. But if he can stay upright, if they can keep him upright, and of course he has that relationship with Frank Reich. Frank Reich used to be his offense coordinator and quarterbacks coach at one time. So he has that relationship with Frank Reich. But, of course, they're going to lean heavily on the running game. I think what Phillip Rivers gives them, not that Jacoby Brissett wasn't a good leader, I think Phillip Rivers is going to give them that instant leadership, and with his competitive spirit, and, he'll talk trash to anybody on the defense. If he can just be a guy that doesn't turn the ball over, through a lot of turnovers, through a lot of interceptions last year, if he can be a guy that protects the football, gets the ball where it needs to be, I think they'll be better because of who Phillip Rivers is and the fact that he's such a competitor. I think that'll rub off on some of the guys. But, of course, he has to stay upright and not turn the ball over.
Yeah, he's certainly a fiery
and have to lean on that running game.
They're going to. They love Marlon Mack. They like Nyheim Hines. They love the stable of backs they have over there. They're going to use their running game. Frank Reich has never been shy about using the running game. I think what Phillip Rivers gives you compared to Jacoby Brissett is a guy who is going to use his experience and his ability to read defenses to make decisions a lot faster than Jacoby Brissett is going to. And that's going to lead to instances where Jacoby Brissett might pull the ball down, tuck it away and run and get 6 or 7 yards. Phillip Rivers might be able to find something a lot quicker, something that he noticed that maybe Jacoby and his inexperience found an outlet. That's a perfect word for it. Gets rid of the football, and that turns into a 12, 13, 15-yard gain or more. And you start having those kind of chunk plays become part of your offense and what y'all do, combining that with a healthy and heavy dose of the running game. Then all of a sudden now you're cooking with something, and Phillip can really grab command of that offense. We've seen him command offenses like that before. I think in San Diego, Anthony Lynn and that offense really lost their mojo when they went through that whole ordeal with Melvin Ingram. Sometimes you just pay a guy just because if
Melvin Gordon?
Melvin Gordon. Did I say Melvin Ingram? That's all. He's the linebacker on the other side. Yeah. Real easy to get them too confused sometimes.
Is.
But Melvin Gordon, you're correct. Melvin Gordon, they should have just paid him maybe not all the way up what he was asking, but paid him a healthy contract because that offense was off and rolling. And had they not had the hiccups of the holdouts, then the injuries, who knows what could have happened there. The receiving core, young tight end, they've got weapons over there. Let me ask you a question. Players that are
Speaking
very
of the Chargers,
talented.
Speaking of the Chargers, do you think that's a good fit for Cam? I still think they're going to draft a quarterback. Now, whether it be Jordan Love or trade up to get Justin Herbert right there, or of course, Tua will probably be gone to Miami. We'll still see. I still want to see Tua, I don't know if he'll be able to play next year, but he's putting out videos.
Hey, I wouldn't be surprised if they drafted a quarterback. If they even if they reached for a guy, I could see them being the guys who make a Mitchell Trubisky type move like the Bears did. Just fall in love with somebody and decide they got to have him for whatever reason. Who knows? Who knows what the Bears were thinking when they did that. But, they've got Tyrod Taylor there. They're going with him as a starter right now. If you bring in Cam as a stopgap because you don't like where you're at in the draft, maybe you like somebody else, there's another guy there you think is a lot better value that can really help your football team long term. Maybe add to that stacked defense already with Bosa and them guys over there and maybe wait on the quarterback. You bring in a guy like Cam Newton and you can – you can devise a similar offense for those two guys, Tyrod and Cam. Cam likes to use his legs probably more than you want him to. Tyrod has to use his legs probably more than you want him to. But these are two guys that I think have similar skill sets and who can do the same thing. And you go into a season with those two guys at quarterback, I think you say, hey, we could be a fringe playoff team, maybe make some noise. If Cam goes down and gets hurt, we've got Tyrod, and we really don't take too much of a step back there.
Yeah, well, you know what, too?
I think he's
Cam
the perfect
Newton,
fit for him, really, if you ask me.
I mean, it is. And I also think Carolina made a mistake by getting rid of Cam Newton. Well, it all hinges on if he's healthy. That's the thing right there. Maybe they know he's not healthy, or maybe they just want to move on and start anew with the new coaching staff. Cam has a strong personality. Maybe they want somebody like Teddy Bridgewater who's going to
they definitely
lay back
want
in the
somebody
wings.
like Teddy Bridgewater because they signed him.
I mean, yeah. I mean, maybe they like Teddy Bridgewater. Of course, he has a chance to be a good quarterback.
Well, you think about the type of offense
then he doesn't have
running,
the ego that Cam
offense.
Newton has as well. And maybe this new coaching staff wants to start anew with somebody with that type of personality more so than Cam. And they figure he can still spread the ball around in the offense with the type of passing attack that they're going to employ. But Cam, in my opinion, if healthy, it's not even a debate if he's healthy. But that's the thing with Cam. You don't know how long that shoulder is going to hold up or how long that foot is going to hold up. So
yeah, I think physically, I think he's going to be okay. I think he's had enough time off. We'll see. If he was really hurt, they would have had to release him with an injured, with a failed physical. So they didn't do that. So we'll see where he gets signed at, where he lands. But I think there's still a lot of tread on the tire. I could see why they got rid of him.
31. He's only 31.
Cam's never really been a guy to me that was a catch the football out of the shotgun, decide where to go with it, and get it there real quick, a read and react kind of quarterback. Cam was a guy that to me always seemed like his ability to really wing it down the field and also his big body, how hard he was to tackle sack.
Yeah, he was hard.
And
it's
when
hard
he
to
got
bring
out of
down.
the pocket on the run, the threat of those two things is what really struck fear in defensive coordinators' hearts. It wasn't, he's going to come in here and nickel and dime us to death, and he's really going to be meticulous about what he does. Mm-hmm. That's not the kind of guy he is. And you look at that air raid offense that Matt Rule's going to want to run, and he's going to want a guy like a Teddy Bridgewater who can, dink and dunk and nickel and dime, and that's all Teddy's known, for a long time, despite what he learned with the Saints. So I think Teddy Bridgewater's a perfect fit for them, and it doesn't surprise me that they moved on from Cam. I think he just needs to Cam talking about Cam Newton just needs to find a place where he can land on his feet, stay healthy, and play football. This guy is just a few years removed from taking his team to a Super Bowl and being an MVP. I know he's still got it in him. You just have to have an offense that's built for him, and he's got to dedicate himself to staying healthy and not taking some of the big hits that he has taken in the past.
Right, he has to adjust his game as well and be more smarter
with that shoulder.
He has to be smarter. He has to be smarter, knowing that he's, knowing its importance to the team. But at this point in his career, he definitely has to be smarter and not run at times where he probably knows he probably would run in the past. Just
if you're Cam Newton, my friend Larry Jaquette he threw this out there. And if you're Cam Newton, do you have a year to wait in this scenario? He says Cam should go to Pittsburgh. I'm thinking that's a great fit for Cam Newton.
It's probably a great fit for Jameis Winston, a guy who can back up. Cam is starting somewhere.
Exactly, he's starting somewhere. But what if Ben Roethlisberger wasn't there? There's already all this speculation that he would retire. He's not going to. But what if Cam could go in and actually win the job?
You know what? I don't think Cam would take that chance.
I don't
competing
think
with
take
Ben
that
Roethlisberger.
Either,
I mean, knowing
think about
how
the
fixated
fit.
Ben Roethlisberger is with that Pittsburgh franchise, so he knows Ben Roethlisberger. If he goes there, it's almost like he's saying, "Okay, I'm going to go here knowing that it's a strong possibility that I'm going to be a backup next year. Because Ben Roethlisberger, if he's healthy, he's entrenched at that number one spot. I just think he's earned that right, and I think Cam would know that. I don't see no scenario where a healthy Cam Newton goes to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, there you go. You said it. What do you think he does? What about a 1-year deal somewhere? Because we know Ben Roethlisberger's on his way out. He's got 1 year left. That's it. I'm saying it right now. He doesn't have 2 left. He can't make it another one. He's getting fatter by the minute. He's got 1 year left. They're gonna make one more run with Big Ben, and then what? I mean, if
maybe
Mike
Jameis
Tomlin
Winston, if they can lure Jameis Winston over there and feed him that Roethlisberger, but knowing Big Ben, he has a good year and he stays healthy, you know he's coming back for another year.
You know what that burger probably tastes like. And Jameis Winston ain't trying to eat it, and I don't think.
But where do you think he ends up? Because I don't think Jameis Winston is going to go to a place where he's going. All the positions are taken up.
Hey, I could see Pittsburgh. Anybody who needs a good backup or a decent backup.
So you definitely think he's going to be a backup next year?
Well, absolutely. I
agree.
I think that you if you can say Jameis Winston is a guy who you can try to work with in the film room and in practice, and he's not going to be the guy that's going to go out there and take the reins every Sunday for you for 17 weeks now. You know, I think that gives you comfort in your ability to sort of try to reverse engineer some of the bad habits he's developed over his time here in the NFL, some of the bad things that he does with his feet and causes him to sail throws and make some really boneheaded plays.
Right.
If you can really calm him down and get him entrenched in your system, then all of a sudden you may have a guy who, when you turn to him as a backup, may be like a Ryan Fitzpatrick, who can go in there and take the reins and lead you to some wins. Or you may have a guy who bounces back late in his career like a Kurt Warner. You don't know what you have there, but
you know what?
You take a chance on him as your backup.
He's the former number 1 pick, Heisman Trophy winner. So we're not talking about some chopped liver right here.
No, but
the guy threw for 5,000 yards last year, but he threw 30 interceptions. And that's the problem. You don't know what you're going to get on any given throw. But I agree with you. If he goes somewhere and he humbles himself, he sits back a year, he learns certain intricacies of the game and learns how to be more patient, learns how to read coverages better, things of that sort. And when he gets this chance to play, you know, some of those things are embedded in him. They are embedded in him by then. And then he could start changing the way he plays the game and sees the game. I agree. Maybe he will be better for it. But because it's obvious the guy's talent is there. I mean, and he's still young. He's only, 25, 26 years old? I mean, so it's not like he's at the end of his career. And, again, he threw for 5,000 yards. But me and you both agree that he's definitely going to have to take a backup role somewhere, where that is, maybe even New Orleans. Now that Teddy Bridgewater has exited, Drew Brees. How long you think Drew Brees is going to be there?
Drew Brees another year? Like, I mean,
right?
I think we're talking about.
Did you say ESPN was trying to get him out the booth?
Oh, yeah, they've been trying to get him up in the booth. That's nothing new, but he
get him in the booth?
He still got some gas in the tank and wants to play, and I don't blame him. I mean, every year that he marches out on the field as the general of Sean Payton's offense, they've got a shot at going to the Super Bowl.
And, you know, when he came back from injury last year, I think he was a bit rejuvenated. I think his arm had got some rest, and I think he even had more zip on the ball when he came back. I thought his arm strength, even though he's never been a guy with a big, strong arm as well.
No, but when he's good, he's
special. But when he's good, and he's pinpoint accurate. But I think that time off last year really helped him mentally as well as physically.
Absolutely, and you know what? Going into this year, we'll see what happens for those guys. I'm not sure.
Any other free agents stand out? Now, of course, Melvin Gordon is now in Denver. So John Elway, I see where John Elway said it's always good to have 2 really good running backs. So, of course, him and Phillip Lindsay will be competing with each other. So I think that's a good move for Melvin Gordon. And
I really like Phillip Lindsay. He's definitely a guy that displays explosiveness out of the backfield. Whenever they give him the football, if he gets the corner on you, he's gone. Mm-hmm. And I really like him as a number 1 guy. I know that he's struggled over time whenever they start to give him too many carries. Mm-hmm. Then he starts to give you them dud games where he really can't get it going.
Right.
And you see backs like him who really thrive on their speed. Sometimes when you put the workload too heavy on them, all of a sudden they lose just a little bit of that that quick twitch ability.
Start taking that pound and right.
All of a sudden they become a very regular back. They don't want that to happen. You bring in a guy like Melvin Gordon who can take those those heavy blows up the middle,
Right.
take those hard hits for you, and then you can get Phillip in there second and third down, long distance situations, goal line situations where
It's
you're
always
looking
good to have
pass.
two good backs, interchangeable
Absolutely.
backs these days.
Absolutely, Denver looking to do some things next year.
We're looking forward to it. And, of course, Dak still hasn't signed with Dallas yet, but I think things are on the upswing, especially now since the retirement of Travis Frederick. But I think that probably freed up some money. But I think Dak is definitely going to
Definitely, but that hurts.
Travis Frederick?
Yeah.
Oh, man, it did. I mean, you're talking about a Pro Bowler who says he was only 29 years old.
Model consistency.
That hurts
man.
for Dak and for Zeke and for that entire offense and for that entire team, because when you have a guy like that on the offensive line that's helping control the line of scrimmage, that not only does that bode well for the running game, and of course your quarterback, he's the one calling out all the signals to Dak as well, but it helps keep your defense fresh because your defense is not on the field because the running game is being bolstered by a great offensive line. So, I mean, that Travis Frederick move, hopefully Dak. Now, I think they're talking more. I think the where they're parting ways right now is on the terms of the deal as far as the length of the deal, but I think Dak is more concerned with the guaranteed money. So we'll see. I don't know. Now, of course, Dak is a guy that's thrown. He almost threw for 5,000 yards last year. Has a 40-24 record over his time in Dallas. I mean, 65.8 completion percentage, and I can go on and on. Passed for almost 17,000 yards. So the guy has definitely outplayed his rookie contract. Make no mistakes about that. Now, is he worth $40 million? I don't think he's worth $40 million. But, of course, you know how it goes in the sports world. It's all about where you are when you come up, time for your contract, where you are. And if he will become the highest paid quarterback in the league, if Jerry Jones does make him the highest paid quarterback. And, again, it's all going to hinge on the guaranteed money and the length of the deal. But if he is, of course, we know Patrick Mahomes, as soon as he comes off a contract, is going to obliterate that. So I hope that gets signed. They put the franchise tag on him. I think now Dak holds all the cards, all the leverage right now. And, of course, there's no football, no meetings and things of that sort. So he doesn't really have to worry about missing any time right now learning the offense of the new coach. So he can kind of lay low and let things play out. Of course, they have to get it done before July the 15th, and I think it will get done. And I think Dak will be paid handsomely. If you look at a guy like Jared Goff got paid. I think he's making upwards of $35 million per year. Dak had a better – now, of course, he led his team to a Super Bowl a couple years ago, but Dak has had a better career than he has up to this point. And, of course, Carson Wentz, who was in the same draft as Dak has had a better career statistically as him, and he's making 32. So Dak is going to get his money now, and we all knew he was going to get it. It's just a matter of when, but I think he will get it done. I don't think he'll play under that franchise tag.
No, I don't think you can go into the season with your quarterback under the franchise tag. Not if it's Dak Prescott, not if you're the Dallas Cowboys. That can't happen. They need to get him under contract, and for the same reason, like you said, because you never know out of nowhere a Patrick Mahomes or a Deshaun Watson contract could come down the pipe and all of a sudden set the market way higher than what they're trying to get. I mean, if Mahomes and Watson get $42 million a year, Dak can ask for 38, 39, because then you can justify
now.
Right now, if you can negotiate that down a little bit and you can go ahead and get him locked in maybe at 35 or something like that, then all of a sudden I think that's a good deal, and you've got your quarterback set in stone, and then you go to war. I mean, What else? You're not going to find a better quarterback right now than Dak Prescott. That's who you've got. You're stuck with him. Brady, he's a
great leader as well, man. I like Dak.
He's a good young quarterback. I've been on this kid's wagon ever since they drafted him, ever since he came to the league and produced the way that he did. Was it a watered down offense? Yes, but was it effective? Yes. Use guys to their strengths, and if the Cowboys start doing that, he will have success.
And I think a lot of it has to do with the play calling as well. Of course, you need a heavy dose of Zeke, but he started taking more shots downfield as of recent, so I think that helps. Of course, he needs to continue to get better. To even get better at his presence in the pocket as far as his feel in the pocket, feeling guys around him swiping at the football, because he loses too many fumbles when guys around him swiping at the football and he's not feeling them, not feeling that pressure around him. So I think he can continue to get better at that. And, of course, even become even more accurate, cut down on interceptions. His first year, I think he probably threw a couple of interceptions. But I think Dak is a quarterback that's definitely ascending. Again, with the numbers that he put up last year, I mean, he's only going to get better with this work ethic, and we'll see what Mike McCarthy, how he helps him evolve. But Dak is going to get paid, so that's going to happen. Now, I'll
tell you real quick what Mike McCarthy's going to add. He's going to add a sense of direction. Like, he's developed young quarterbacks. He knows what he's doing when it comes to the steps to bring a young quarterback along and get him up to the point where he's finally blossomed into a finished final product like an Aaron Rodgers. You look at Mike McCarthy. Did he have Brett
Favre for a minute too?
Absolutely.
Yes,
you look at Mike McCarthy compared to Jason Garrett in that aspect, and it's night and day. It's not even close.
Right.
You can't even really compare the two. So now you add, and I think it was genius what McCarthy did in keeping Kellen Moore as the offensive coordinator. So now you're running the same offense, which put up numbers that were good enough to be ranked at or near the top of the league in a lot of statistical categories, and you're taking that, and now you're giving it a sense of direction. It was just out there in the ether, just bouncing around, going wherever the hell it could go. Sometimes it would go straight and it'd be good for the Cowboys, and sometimes it'd be going backwards and it'd be really, really bad. But you always knew that offense had elite power and could unleash itself at any given time. It just had no direction. The franchise, everybody had no real direction under Jason Garrett. And now you add Mike McCarthy, and now all of a sudden he's going to say, hey, this is where we are.
Right there. Right.
This is where we're going, and this is how the hell we're going to get there. All right? And that's the best thing the Cowboys could have ever done is bring in somebody like him who knows exactly what they're doing.
Now, granted, when the decision was first made, of course, I wanted him to look at guys like Urban Meyer and Lincoln Riley. But on second thought, if you're not going to get one of these guys like that I'm speaking of, I mean, you're getting a guy that's a former Super Bowl winner. So he's going to bring instant credibility to that team and to that locker room. So I think, and I agree with you, I think he's going to add some stability with his experience in working with young quarterbacks young great quarterbacks like Aaron Rodgers, and also work with Brett Favre. So I think Dak is going to even give him more of a listening ear because of it. Not only because that's just who Dak is, he's going to take coaching well, but the instant credibility that listening to a guy that's a Super Bowl winner brings. And of course, if he signed another contract, that's even going to bode even better for him as far as his peace of mind. So
it's like when you're riding around in a car, like if you don't know where y'all going, aren't you getting kind of suspect as you see, like, you start looking at places y'all are driving by you never seen before. You're like, hey, man, where the hell are we going? You get anxious all of a sudden. Well, anxiety is the worst thing a young quarterback can have. So now when he realizes and the rest of that team realizes that this franchise has a direction, that the guy driving the car knows where he's going, he's able to tell you that he knows where he's going, all of a sudden it eases that anxiety. And a quarterback like a young Dak Prescott can play the game with peace. He can go out there, not inside his head, go out there and just play the game, be successful that way. And that when Dak Prescott can play like that, watch out, man. He could put up MVP numbers because I've seen him for stretches do things that a lot of quarterbacks in the league really can't, really, not that they can't do, they just don't do. There's just a very few handful of quarterbacks who can put up the numbers that this guy can put up whenever you get him going in the right direction.
Right, you get him going in the right direction, and with the talent around him, he's an MVP caliber quarterback. I will say that. I'm just projecting forward. Now, I don't think he's been an MVP. I don't think he's had an MVP season. But he's an MVP caliber quarterback. He has the talent. He has the goods around him. And I really look forward to seeing Dak evolve even more than he has. Now, before we get out of here,
real quick. Okay, so Daryl asking, because we haven't talked about Jadeveon Clowney. We mentioned a little bit that is another trade that people in Houston last year were up in arms about, because you really felt like Bill O'Brien didn't get back fair value for a guy like Clowney. And then Clowney goes over there, and he only has 3 sacks.
Right.
And I think Jacob Martin himself, one of the guys in the trade for Jadeveon Clowney, I believe he had 3 sacks as well this season. now all of a sudden, Jadeveon Clowney, what they call the first wave of free agency has passed, and all of a sudden now Jadeveon Clowney still is unsigned, hasn't gotten the big deal. You remember, I think Brian Gain offered him a contract somewhere in the neighborhood of $100 million, but he had turned it down. I think they offered him 90 or something like that.
I think he wished he probably would have accepted that now.
Maybe now he does, but the market has diminished for Clowney, and what Daryl's asking is, did Clowney overprice himself? Was it Clowney? Was it his
Yes,
agent?
he did.
Was it them two together? Should they have just taken the Texans deal?
Well, you know what the thing is with Clowney?
I mean, because I didn't see this coming. I figured
Well,
there would
because
be
you know
at
what it
least
is?
one team, like a Buffalo,
Right.
who would.
I think he's probably going to end up back in Seattle. I mean, Clowney had a good year last year, but Clowney is trying to covet money like an elite pass rusher. And even though he's the former number one pick and he was projected as an elite pass rusher, the guy has never gotten double-digit sacks in his career. And if you're going to ask for $20 million, no matter how well you are in the run game, and obviously when you're a run stopper and you can command that kind of attention in the run game, that opens other things up for other people. But if you're going to command $20 million, you're going to have more than 3 sacks, more than 8 sacks, and they're just not going to pay a guy with this injury history. He's a guy that had
the microfracture
surgery on his knee, so you never know what point that's going to be arthritic. We already see what's happening with Todd Gurley and how his career has been derailed because of an arthritic knee. So, and I think Clowney even had a couple of injuries last year. We had to sit out a game or two. So the guy's injury history, along with his ability or his non-ability to garner double-digit sacks, is just not going to make these teams want to pay him upwards of $20 million.
It just gives them a bargaining chip at the table to say, hey,
absolutely,
look, these guys who make that kind of money, they come
off
this.
the edge. Yeah.
And don't be wrong, Clowney comes off the edge.
He does.
He's really good at setting the edge. He's really good at what he does. He does get in the quarterback and cause pressures. He's up there in the league when it comes to pressures on the quarterback. Mm-hmm. But he's always in same thing with the Texans, although he was able to get up to like 8 sacks, 9 sacks. Same thing with the Texans. He was just not getting to the point, which wasn't getting there. He was close, but not getting there.
Right. He's one of those guys that, like when he was with the Texans, I used to always say, J.J. Watt would get the sack, and Clowney would be right there as soon as the sack was over, and he'll be celebrating with J.J. Watt. But he would almost be at the sack.
Yeah, he would almost be there.
But J.J. would get it, but then he would be celebrating. It's like he got a half a sack or something. But
he's like a wrecking ball for against your running game, though. Like he's so good at identifying gap that they're trying to run.
He's a tremendous talent.
That's where I know a lot of people maybe don't recognize or give Clowney enough credit for how smart of a player he is, but he's a very smart player. If you look at how he's able to read some plays before they even happen and find himself in the right position to just really knock somebody's head off. He's been doing it ever since he was in college. He really underrated in that aspect. I think he's a phenomenal player. I think if somebody really knew how to use him, they could get the most out of him. I think back in 2016, Romeo Crennel, the way he used him that year, the year they went to the playoffs, played against the Raiders, Clowney had that big interception on a screen pass. I mean, I think he had 8 sacks that year. He really came in to his own that year, played all year long. I think only missed one game where they rested him. That's the type of Clowney I think going in that direction underneath a guy like Romeo Crennel who has a plan for him, knows exactly how he wants to use him. Because you saw Romeo did. They almost had him like a freelancing linebacker at times, and he would just blow up the middle of running plays many times.
Right.
A guy like that could really take Clowney and make him into the all-pro that we know that he would.
And he
that
can
he really
be an all-pro
be.
with this talent, and if he can stay healthy, if that knee holds up and whatever other injuries that he's been dealing with, if he's healthy, he can be something special. He's still only, 24, 25 years old. So I think the guy can be special on the football field. Now, the thing is, I think with Clowney also is he needs to develop more of an array of moves to get to the quarterback. He uses his bull rush a lot. I think since he's come into the league, he's maybe tried something here and there, but he needs to perfect maybe a couple of counter moves to go along with just that one step. I'm just going to, just force my way in there. If he gets a little wiggle in him and to go along with that athleticism, then I think he can really get home to the quarterback a lot more.
Well, wiggle is one thing that Jadeveon Clowney really doesn't have a
He's
whole
more of a
lot
straight line
his
guy.
flexibility is something that
That's
he
what it
is
is, yeah.
lacking in.
Right.
And that does affect his ability to really come down hard around
Right.
around the edge and do like a Dwight Freeney where they're able to bend that
And
body
almost get low to-
and get
get low to the
low,
ground.
touch
Yeah,
that spot
right,
and go
right.
downhill and get
Right.
to the quarterback. He's not that guy. But where he's gotten a lot better at, and you can give a lot of credit for this, and this could be an underrated place where he can end up if the price goes down for Clowney. Mike Vrabel got him really good at using his hands, really good at getting his base, getting his feet set, being in a powerful position, able to hold off multiple defenders with multiple hands, take on double teams and win, and get in the backfield and make plays.
That'd be a good fit.
It would be a
Tennessee
great fit. I don't think
I agree
they
with
don't
that.
want to pay top dollar for Jadeveon Clowney, but if they can get
Not 20.
Jadeveon Clowney on 80% of what he's looking for, with some incentives
think
maybe,
that's
and
what
with
it's
a
gonna
way
come
they can
down
get
to.
out if he gets
Right.
hurt.
You give him some incentives.
One, there's incentives on one end where you could really make a lot of money, but also if you get hurt, there's an incentive for us to go ahead and cut bait
Move
and
on.
be done
Right,
with you.
right,
It's
right,
tough
right.
to take that kind of deal, but Jadeveon Clowney may want to bet on himself in this situation because going and playing for Mike Vrabel,
And
looking
take
at
a
the
short-term deal where he's able to re-up in a couple of years.
Maybe, yeah. Look at the way he's was able to develop with the Texans. I mean, it was night and day compared to his rookie year to the year before he left, or even year before that. And the way he was handling blockers, the way he was using his hands to get in the backfield, taking on double teams, it was really impressive to see. No, he didn't get home on double-digit sacks. He got to 9 sacks, but he was very effective in disrupting the passing game. He always finds a way to get his hands on the football. He had a touchdown, an interception return for a touchdown that year. He also had one this past year for the Seattle
He did.
Seahawks. This is
He played
something.
well for the
This is
Seahawks.
something that the guy does.
well.
He affects the stat sheet in many ways. You get him with Mike Vrabel, a guy like that, and all of a sudden, watch out. I think the health issues, now the knee could always come back to bite him later, but I think for the most part, they figured it out, and he's figured out like his routine and his regimen throughout the season and how he's going to stay healthy for 16 games, what he's going to do, how he's going to work out, how he's going to stay effective, and it's worked the last couple of seasons with the Texans. It worked last year, and I see more of that in his future. He lands with a Mike Vrabel. Watch out. You're looking at a guy who could really be the steal of this free agency if you don't have to pay him top dollar, and he shows up and becomes the Jadeveon Clowney that the Texans thought they were drafting with the
I
number
totally
one
agree
overall
with that.
pick.
If he takes less money, that can be a steal for a team. If he takes less money and stays healthy, I mean, that could definitely be a steal for a team as a defensive lineman. You're talking about a former number 1 pick who's been to the Pro Bowl a couple of years, but the guy has tremendous talent. So we'll see. I guess we'll leave some meat on the bone for his NBA for next week. It's literally no, like we said, there's no sports happening right now. But we're going to come in here and make it happen anyway and do what we do. So,
yeah, I know. I mean, we're just trying to get by, man.
Hey,
you know what I'm saying?
And who knows how long this is going to go on? This is just where we are right now. Sign
I
of the
come in here
times.
just coasting. I'm not even gonna lie. I probably lost my train of thought at least 2 or 3 times
It's all
during this
good.
show.
It's all good. Hey, it's
May or
nothing.
may not be under
We
the
have to at
influence
least
of
do this just to.
mind altering.
Hey, we have to think about going on hiatus for about a month.
Oh man, that would be terrible. But you know what? I would find something to do. I always do.
We
But
might, yeah,
as long
I
as
mean-
I'm not getting around crowds of people though.
No. You still have to stay safe.
Yeah,
Take
I'm
your
driving
precautions
through,
out
pick
there.
up food.
Yeah. Hey, it's real in the field. This pandemic is something serious, and hopefully it doesn't get worse.
there's
Hopefully
a-
things
there's
are
a-
getting better, but it's still, as of right now, it's still escalating. But hopefully they can. Find
There's a
vaccine.
lot of love making going on out there, man. People are trapped in close quarters with other people. There's
Absolutely.
a lot of love making going on.
Trapped in places with people. It's like if
Well,
they
trapped
have
at
it,
home.
you have it. Well, I mean, that's what I mean.
You're trapped at home.
If they have it, you have it.
It's not like
Simple
you're
as
trapped
that.
at the supermarket. or something.
Right.
You're trapped at
So-
home.
So it's like, hey, so that's the way it goes right now these days. Hey, but we had fun. We'll definitely be back next Tuesday, same time, the media block. Enjoy my man Eddie Cox today.
Hopefully, it'll be a lot, maybe some more NFL news. I'm really curious.
Yeah,
to
I mean,
see.
because there's still a lot that we can even still. I mean, we can go on and on and on, but we could talk about baseball. We could talk, but even though it's no games, we could just talk about. Y'all can call in or type in with questions about who you think the best player is ever in this, and you could just type in questions, But what we're probably going to start doing is just doing stuff like that. who you think is such and such the best player of all time in this position.
Hey, whatever we got to do to keep the conversation
whatever
going.
we got to do to keep the sports conversation going, we will do.
I don't know if you saw this, but DraftKings, as we know, they're taking a big hit right now. DraftKings, one of your favorite daily fantasy websites, you go in, there's always a baseball game or a basketball game or a golf game or something going on where you can go in DraftKings and you can play daily fantasy for that sport. Right now, there's none of that going on. So you know what they have going on right now?
What?
It's free to play. It don't cost you any money, but you can still win money. I won 25 cents myself earlier.
25 cents?
I won 25 cents. It didn't
That's a
cost me a
profit.
dime. How
That's
about
a
that?
profit.
They have a Madden simulation where they'll put together two teams. Yesterday it was like San Francisco and the Kansas City Chiefs. Today the one I played was Tennessee and Indianapolis.
Mm-hmm.
And you treat it just like it's a real game. You go into there, you pick your daily fantasy lineup, you get your captain, you pick your other 4 or 5 bench players, and then you go to war with it, and you're watching the game. Instead of watching a football game, you're watching a Madden simulation
yeah,
broadcast.
yeah.
But hey, you're still rooting for them boys to score. You want to win that money. The top prize, I think, is like $500 or something like that.
What?
Yeah, but I mean, and it's free to play.
Come
so
on.
hey, man, get on there,
Let's
get on
come
that,
up.
get
Let's
on,
come
get
up.
on that DraftKings and mess
Speaking
around.
of DraftKings and speaking of Madden,
You know I'm losing my mind when I'm watching.
You know what, though?
Madden.
I need to go pick up me a
and
PS4,
gambling.
man. I need to go pick up a PS4, get on some Madden.
Hey, and that Call of Duty too. Don't underestimate
Call
it, man.
of Duty.
That Call of Duty's where it's
Oh,
at.
I need to go pick up a PS4.
If it wasn't for Call of Duty, I ain't gonna lie. I probably just would have just went out and let the Corona get me already, man. Because when I'm at the house, and I'm not chilling with my friends or with my chick. I'm playing that Call of Duty, man. That's how I occupy my time. I mean, there's no sports on. Normally, I'd be watching the Rockets. I'd be watching, the XFL. I'd be checking out. I'm going to the games. I like to go to the basketball games. I like to go to the XFL, NFL games. But with none of that going on right now, I get to the house and I don't want to watch the news. It's just all a bunch of Corona shit. So
hey, speaking of your boy P.J. Walker, as far as the XFL, he signed with Carolina.
Signed with Carolina.
I told you he's gonna get a shot in the league.
That's another guy that I think fits that criteria, that type of system. You look at what he was doing with June Jones, and it's very similar. That is June Jones is like the godfather of the air raid offense almost. I
was with him in Atlanta for when I left Ohio State, I was with him in Atlanta for 3 weeks.
Yeah, but a lot of people like him as a head coach, and certainly a genius when it comes to the passing game.
He was offense coordinator then, right?
Yeah, in Atlanta.
He was offense coordinator,
right,
with the Falcons,
right. And then didn't he go on to be the head coach for a little bit,
He
too?
did. Yeah, because it was Glanville still there that year.
Oh, man, Jerry Glanville.
yeah.
He had his day here in Houston, too, didn't he?
Glanville was something else, man.
He was something
Glanville
else.
was something else.
Man, you ever watch them old-time NFL videos and stuff like that and look at them old jackets and stuff they used to wear and just the old clothes, like Jimmy Johnson in that old 90s starter jacket with the starters hat?
Those were the days.
Or just see them old-time coaches and just, remember what the game was like back then.
Sparking that nostalgia. Well, I like watching old school. Like that's one thing. That's one of the gripes I have about the NFL Network. And I don't know if they just don't have the contract for this or what. But show more games from the 70s and 80s.
Well, contract, they own it all. I mean,
I don't know why they don't.
They own it all.
Why can't we see a game from 79?
mean,
Cowboys against such and such. Or
have.
Oilers, Love You Blue against Miami. That game, I remember watching that game, actually.
I've seen
on Monday
some
Night
games.
Football. I mean, come on, man.
They have
everything
played
they show us
some.
from 2017. I have no interest in it.
What it is I
It's too
guarantee you
recent.
they just go by their ratings, and for whatever reasons, maybe them old games don't pull as many viewers.
I don't even think they've even tried it.
When you think about it, they got to remaster the whole thing just for it to be pleasant to watch on TV nowadays with what you're used to. With high definition cameras and all the angles
That's a
you
good point.
get, if you watch a
So
game
much
even from
digital work will have to go
the
into it.
early '90s, what you can see on screen is very compacted to just the offensive line, the quarterback, and the first set of linebackers. And then once he drops back to pass, then you've got a camera that's a little bit further back where you can see everything. You don't get the in-your-face cameras,
But
the cable cams like you have.
Right, that's true.
But that's what makes it pleasant to the viewers who aren't diehard football fans like me and you.
Okay, because
And
I was
that's
about
what-
to say, I like all the way that stuff was back.
That's what
just
drives
put
the
game
ratings
on.
up, you know what I
However
mean?
it was showed back then, as far as on TV, just show it like that. Show me some
Oh, yeah,
Steelers
I've
against
watched
the Browns,
the old,
week 14.
They've showed Super Bowl I, Super Bowl II, stuff like that. I've
like
seen
on
those.
NFL highlights. And the thing about, but you know what, as far as the camera talk you're talking about, that's what makes NFL films, just so great, man.
Oh,
if you
man.
think about how far they were ahead of the curve back then. You
Steve
think about
Sable.
for Steve Sable. You think about even the first Super Bowl, just all the way through. how they were just some of the camera shots that they were able to get, and just the way they had these people mic'd up. I mean,
The voice
it's
of Howard
amazing.
Cosell.
The voice, right.
You know, that drove a lot of that too.
I love Howard Cosell.
Yes.
He used to be on that Monday Night Football, but NFL Films, man, they were way ahead of the time, man. And I mean, but they were special. They are special. But I'm ready to get out of here. What about
Let's
you?
go, man. Let's get on down the road, man. We got to get out of here. We got things to do.
Everybody
Got
stay
gotta
blessed.
Go quarantine.
You got to go quarantine. Everybody stay blessed. Stay prayed up. Until next week, legends live and let live.
Later.